Disneyland, a place full of exploration, wonder, and secret underground tunnels. If you've ever wandered through the park and imagined a labyrinth of hidden passages running beneath your feet, you are not alone. There is a widespread misconception that Disneyland has a network of tunnels similar to Walt Disney World. Over in Florida at the Magic Kingdom, there really is a massive underground system known as the utilidors. These are tunnels that allow cast members to travel invisibly, keeping the magic alive for the guests above ground. But here in Anaheim, things are a bit different. Disneyland was built in 1955 on a relatively small plot of land, and Walt Disney didn't have the luxury of designing the park with a massive underground access point in mind. So sadly, no, Disneyland doesn't have an extensive tunnel system like its Florida cousin. Or does it? But what if I told you there are some very, very real underground structures buried beneath Main Street, USA, and I believe that I have uncovered 2 of them. And friends, these aren't rumors or stories passed around by Disney fans. There are clues and evidence that I've uncovered that these hidden spaces exist just beneath the surface. And the best part, only few people know about them. We're gonna be some of those people. Ricky here, and we're about to discover the forgotten basements of Main Street, USA, starting with the place you least expect. To understand our first hidden discovery on Main Street, USA, we need to take a quick detour to Adventureland. And trust me, this will make sense soon enough. One of Disneyland's first experiments with audio animatronics happened right here at the enchanted Tiki room. To bring the tropical paradise to life, Disney engineers had to hide an incredible amount of technology. Beneath the Tiki room is a basement full of machinery, so advanced for its time that it made the Tiki room the first air-conditioned non-theater attraction in all of Disneyland. The building needed that air conditioning because if the equipment didn't stay cool, it would overheat. Down in that basement, you'll hear a sound that sounds like popcorn popping, but it's not popcorn at all. It's the clicking and popping of hundreds of valves and relays that regulate air pressure, animating the birds, tikis, and even the fountain. Only the bird beaks are controlled by electricity. Everything else is powered by compressed air. The basement is also where the animatronics come to life, with 225 personalities and 438 separate actions programmed using a 14-channel magnetic tape. And another detail most folks don't know about, there's a bird hospital down here. That's right, think about it. You have all these animatronic birds, you need a place to work on them, and that happens in the bird hospital. Get well soon. It's an extraordinary feat of Imagineering, especially when you think about this is 60s technology. This quick backstory is crucial for understanding how audio animatronics shape Disneyland's layout and secret spaces. So now that we know how much space, noise isolation, and cooling are required for a complex audio animatronic show like the Enchanted Tiki Room, let's put that knowledge to work as we move over to Main Street, USA. Where do you think the command center is for great moments with Mr. Lincoln? With everything you've learned about how audio animatronics need a backstage area for all the equipment, the answer isn't as simple as it might seem. Now let's add another layer to the mystery. With the recent announcement that a Walt Disney audio animatronic will soon be in this building, it will feature 2 figures performing on the stage. And early plans suggest that the Walt Disney figure will be accompanied by video boards and additional technology, making the setup even more complex. The Tiki Room's basement, as we learned, is essential for housing the equipment, keeping it cool and isolating all that noise. But here at the Main Street Opera House, there just doesn't seem to be enough room to fit in all this machinery. So ask yourself, where could all this equipment be hidden? To better understand this puzzle, let's break down the layout of the Main Street Opera House. At first glance, the building appears to be large and impressive from the outside, but when you analyze it from above, the limitations become more clear. The space behind the red curtain is shockingly shallow. Even if fully enclosed, this area would be far too cramped for the kind of extensive machinery needed to run one audio animatronic, much less 2 figures plus video technology. Imagine the heat generated by this equipment, combined with the noise from the hydraulic and pneumatic systems. It would be unbearable and doesn't seem practical. This spatial challenge points to only one logical conclusion. there has to be an underground area at the Opera House. Even though the Main Street Opera House was the first building constructed on Disneyland property, it wasn't the elegant structure that we all know and love today. Long before it became the Opera House, it served a different purpose entirely. It was the Disneyland Mill. This is where much of Main Street, USA and the rest of the park was fabricated. It looked way more like a massive workshop because that's exactly what it was. While the rest of Main Street was taking shape, the Opera House was lagging behind. It wasn't meant to be a showpiece, it was an essential part of the construction process. Eventually, an open-air extension was built onto the front of the structure to serve as an additional workspace. In this rare photo, you can see the top of that front extension. Take note of the structure's very temporary look. Like, we could do that at Home Depot today, bro. This photo, taken from that exact same vantage point a while later, shows the extension being removed. Notice that the Main Street train station is nearly complete, indicating how far along construction had progressed while the Opera House was still a workshop. Once the extension was gone, they began applying the facade we all recognize today. Now, in this footage of Disneyland's early construction, pay close attention to the telephone pole, because it serves as a reference point showing just how far out the front extension of the Opera House had to stretch to perfectly align with the rest of Main Street. And this, my friends, is where it gets very, very interesting. So now that we understand just how far the facade extends, it's time to share my recent discovery. And even though I've watched this 100 times, I just realized something is hidden inside of this footage. Let's rewind and watch as they construct one of Main Street's most well-hidden secrets, a basement that few people know exists. There is a basement buried beneath the Opera House, being dug right before our eyes. This piece of history has been hidden in plain sight. And now as we return to the footage of the facade being added, you'll see that the basement area is now fully covered by what we recognize as the front of the building as it stands today. Sometimes the greatest discoveries are hidden right in front of us. I've watched that construction footage hundreds of times. I'm not over-exaggerating. And not once did I notice the detail of the basement being dug. It was only after I stumbled upon a fascinating article in an old Disneyland publication going back to the 60s. It was then, and only then, when I knew exactly where to look. Let me share with you what I found. The article describes a place few guests have ever heard about, the Lincoln Basement. It's here that George Short and Jack Payne spent their days keeping a watchful eye on 3 television monitors and the master control panel. This wasn't just any control panel. To the untrained eye, it looked like a maze of lights, switches, and buttons. But to George and Jack, this panel was the beating pulse of great moments with Mr. Lincoln Show.
The world has never had a good definition of the word liberty.
At the heart of Mr. Lincoln's performance is a 1-inch wide tape containing 11 tracks of pulses. These pulses, combined with a sophisticated system of hydraulic oil and air, are what gave Mr. Lincoln his incredibly lifelike moments. It's an intricate setup that operates smoothly from the hidden basement. And this animatronic has been updated, so we're going old school, but that doesn't mean that the basement went away. And friends, it's not just about the technology, it's about the attention to detail. Every morning, a wardrobe crew checks to make sure Mr. Lincoln's hair is combed, his pants are pressed, and his shirt is clean. Once everything is in place, they run the show 4 times in the basement to make sure his delivery is pitch perfect. And only then is he lifted by an elevator to the stage level, ready to meet his guest. I love this. During the colder winter months, Mr. Lincoln is put to bed after 8 hours or 45 shows. And the best part is, most guests never realize this attention to detail is happening right beneath their feet. I've walked past this building 1,000 times, never even thinking about where the backstage mechanisms for Mr. Lincoln live. And now that I know that, I'm even more impressed with the levels of creative problem solving that happens here at Disneyland. This place, it never stops. Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying today's video. And if you are and you want to support Hey Bricky and get your very own limited edition Hallmark hat. Then a perfect way to do that is to click the link below, made with our friends over at the Happy Jack Cap Co. So excited you show up. I'm so excited you're going to support Hey Bricky. Now back to today's video. Now that we know about the hidden basement beneath the Opera House, let's take a walk in with a brand new perspective. As we enter, we're immediately greeted by Walt Disney's famous bench and a shallow foyer. But as we stand here, let's judge the length of the lobby. And keep in mind that Mr. Lincoln's stage begins around where the bookcase is located. And where the room starts to bend along the ceiling line, that's roughly the start of his stage. The staging area itself is fairly large and deep and extends back to about where the Disneyland model is displayed. And here's something else to consider. That model is actually recessed into the space, making the area behind Mr. Lincoln's stage even smaller than it appears from the outside. Let's step through the first door. Even though we entered on the ground level and everything seemed flat, we are now taking 3 steps down, going below the street level. This change in elevation is subtle, but it's a key indication that this building does indeed extend beneath the ground surface. In the back of theater, this is where all the lighting and theatrical effects and sound for great moments with Mr. Lincoln are produced. Friends, why did I never stop and think about this? It's a detail that most of us walk past without a second thought. But knowing what we know now, it becomes a brilliant example of Disney's clever use of space to hide the Disney magic. Now that we've explored one of Main Street's greatest secrets, you have to ask yourself, is there another one of these basements that you've walked past countless times and had no idea? And the answer is yes. There's one. Hey friends, if you're enjoying today's video and going on this quest with me and you want to keep digging deep into the Disneyland history, make sure you subscribe to Hey Bricky. This is the easiest, freest way to keep going on this journey with me, and I'm so glad that you showed up, and I'm twice as happy that you decided to subscribe to Hey Bricky. Now back to our video. Coca-Cola Refreshment Corner, or as many of us call it, Coke Corner, is an iconic spot that has been serving guests since Disneyland opened in 1955, and it's known for its old-fashioned charm, complete with a ragtime piano player to entertain guests that sit out on its patio. But there are a couple of things that make Coke's Corner design unique and different than every other building on Main Street, USA. For starters, it's one of the most narrow shops on all of Main Street, with the interior being a very compact footprint visible to guests. And it's also the only location on Main Street that faces the north, giving it less direct sunlight compared to all of its neighbors. Back in 1955, when Disneyland opened, Coca-Cola was hugely popular, and Disneyland needed a way to keep up with its high demand for ice-cold sodas. But with such a limited space, where would they store hundreds of Coke bottles and all of the supplies? This small 1,200 square foot shop actually has an additional 1,700 foot basement hidden below it. When the park first opened, this basement was used to store bottled Coke. A conveyor belt system transported full cases up to the counter and sent the empty cases back down to the basement. A clever solution for managing the high demand of ice-cold soda inside of Disneyland. According to cast members, entering the basement is quite an experience. There's a large service elevator conveniently located across from the Jungle Cruise boat storage area. This is the easiest way to get in. There's also a very tight spiral staircase that you can take down to the basement. Once inside, you'll find that there's more than just storage. There are wardrobe lockers, dressing rooms for cast members, and even a safe built into solid concrete measuring 3 feet on each side. Talk about secure storage. Who could ever break into there? The basement doesn't just serve Coke Corner either. A small adjoining room is used by the Candy Palace. This air-conditioned room is kept at a constant 68 degrees to ensure chocolate stays fresh for the Disney guests. While Coca-Cola remains a staple at Coke Corner, the method of dispensing it has evolved over the years. Today, a series of 36 tanks, each holding enough syrup for 100 7-ounce drinks, are hooked together in the basement. And CO2 is used to push the Coke from the tanks through an ice bin upstairs to the fountain. On an average summer day, and this is going back to the 50s, Disneyland guests would consume over 180,000 ounces of Coke. I can only imagine that is doubled or tripled. How you doing? I'm great, I'm at Disneyland. Have a good day. So if you're wondering why Coke Corner is the only building on Main Street with a basement, there's a very practical explanation. Every other shop along Main Street was designed to be wider and deeper, with more space to accommodate storage and operations. But Coke Corner sits in a tight, awkward corner where the kitchen areas for the Tropical Hideaway and Jolly Holiday Cafe cut into what should have been its footprint. This design constraint makes both Candy Palace and Refreshment Corner much smaller and more compact than other shops on Main Street. So adding a basement beneath the corner was a logical and efficient solution to maximize the limited space and keep up for the high demand of all those delicious Disneyland treats. If Disneyland had known how busy the park would have become, they might have built all of Main Street with basements beneath it, just like they did at Magic Kingdom. To learn more, watch this video where I explain how Tomorrowland was used in 1967 as an experiment to see if Walt's dream of underground tunnel efficiencies could become a reality. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you.